So as I said, specifically born between the mid-60s and 1982, the real key thing about this generation is that we had to adapt to technology. So unfortunately, I don't squeeze into Generation Y. I'm actually still firmly in Generation X. So actually, I remember a time we didn't have computers at school until actually we got through to high school. So we didn't grow up with technology. We had to adapt it. You know, I remember email being introduced into the workplace, and actually you had to learn how to adapt and change the way you worked. In theory, in most cases, the technology in the workplace for Generation X was actually more advanced than the technology at home. So mainframe computers came into the workplace. Not a lot of people had home PCs or home laptops. There clearly was a divide between the technology in the home and the technology in the workplace. The other thing is Generation X really quite readily accept more traditional working practices. So if you think about training courses, Generation X believed actually that would mean they'd need to get in a car to go to a conference center where they can actually see the course administrator, and actually that's how they were going to learn. They actually recognized that sales teams across the UK would basically know that once a month they were all going to get in a car because they would have a regional sales meeting so that their boss could go through their targets and talk to them about performance. And almost they readily accepted that every day of your working life you went to the office because that's where you did business. And actually that was all quite readily accepted. You know, Generation X liked the flexibility of mobile working, but actually they accepted that perhaps their businesses are actually not set up to be able to deliver that for them. Now, the interesting thing is about Generation X is that in business today, Generation X are in the majority of the managerial positions. So actually we've got Generation X who are actually in those senior management positions, actually managing the different and younger generation coming into the business. So that's Generation X. Hands up if you were born after 1982. Yeah, oh, quite a lot. Okay, so probably 10%, 10, 15%. Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit about the differences between Generation Y, who are those people that were born from 1982 up to the millennium. So first of all, they've grown up with technology. You know, now we have technology on our fridges, on our washing machines. Everyone has MacBooks at home. Everyone has grown up at primary school with PCs and phones. And it's just been an absolute way of life. The time they spend on the internet now totally exceeds every other type of media time that they spend. The other thing is that they actually demand flexible working. Actually, these people, the best Generation Ys, that's one of the things that they will actually ask you at interview, is how your business supports flexible working. And no longer will they accept that they need to come to the office every day to perform their duties and carry out their work. They actually are demanding that from their employers rather than fitting in with a culture that exists. They don't live to work, but work to live. And very much more work-life balance is much more about entwining a work-life balance throughout the day. So it's not about I work between 9 and 5 and then I switch off and then my home life starts. It's about being flexible and being able to move in and out of that scenario depending on the demand or the constraints that they have. And actually, Generation Y are now entering the workspace in large numbers. And if businesses are not thinking and considering how they can change their infrastructures to support Generation Y, then actually this is going to be a real challenge for them moving forward. So it's really, really important to recognize, and you know, you take some really big companies now, KPMG, for example, they now have to give all of their new starters and their graduates iPhones and iPads to actually retain them, because actually that's what they're demanding from these employers. The other thing that's quite interesting is that Generation Y want to join a company because of its ethics. It's not just about the brand, it's what's behind the brand. So actually, Generation Y might have some real challenges with perhaps working with companies that have either been in the media or they've learned that perhaps the ethics or the principles of the cultures don't align with what they're thinking. So I think it's really important to understand the difference in those generations and the impact that they can have on our businesses going forward. So the world is changing, and there are huge demands that are being placed on us all of the time. So being placed on us as manufacturers and suppliers, but also your businesses. By 2014, there will be 28 million mobile workers in the UK. That is going to be a huge growth, and actually the support and the requirement to enable that is going to be fairly immense. 85% of employees prefer flexible working. Perhaps that's not a surprise to most of you. Quite interestingly, 40% of desks at any one time are not used. And at the average cost of a desk in an office, fully loaded, of being about £10,000 to £12,000, that's a considerable cost. So now businesses are really thinking about, as they grow and scale, as Chris said, actually, do I need to give people a desk that they come to work and they know is their desk with their pens and their laptop or PC set up? 60% of data now leaves the office. We've talked about BlackBerry, we've talked about mobile data, and through smartphone penetration, that is now happening more and more all of the time. Quite interesting there, 70% of customers expect a response in 2 hours. Now, we've done some independent research on this, and if you go back 4 years ago, it was independent research in the relationship between a business and a consumer, a customer of that business. Now, the test was actually done on a fairly fundamental, it was a stationary offering. 4 years ago, customers were prepared to wait 24 hours for somebody to give them a quote around a fairly consumable generic item. That was tended to be quite acceptable. When we did that research 2 years ago, that had dropped to 4 hours. When we recently did that research, that has now dropped to 1 hour. And actually, what those customers are saying is, if I'm not getting that response from you within an hour, I don't think you want my business, and I'm going to go somewhere else to get it. So really, the changing expectations and demands that our customers have mean that if we don't capture every single opportunity and respond to it quickly, we're going to lose it. And actually, on average, a lost sale could be worth £30,000. And we've got some great examples on our website where companies have used mobile working that has really meant they've captured business opportunities that have actually exceeded £30,000 by some considerable way. So, you know, the business, the environment that we live in is really, really changing, and we have to be able to adapt to that. You know, the other things that are happening is that clearly we still have a very uncertain economic outlook. You know, there are changing work patterns and changing technology. So actually, this is creating all of the turmoil within the environment that we work. That means that we have to start thinking about those things. And as businesses, we have a choice of being in denial of those things and thinking, actually, it's not going to impact me, or I don't need to think about it yet. Or actually, it's about taking it as an opportunity and reacting to that now so that you actually are prepared and ready and you're going to build a thriving business. That's a lot of talk and theory about new ways of working and some of the pressures. And what I now want to do is to tell you a little bit about how we've implemented that at Vodafone. Historically, Vodafone basically took over the town of Newbury. We had some 64 buildings spread across Newbury. So everywhere that you went, you saw red Vodafone logos. So in 2007, we actually brought together and cut all our property costs and built a ready-made campus purely for the Vodafone employees. At that time, there was approximately 3,000 of those employees. Now, what happened as a result of that is Offices disappeared. Nobody within Vodafone has an office or a dedicated space within which they work. So if Guy Lawrence goes to the office, he will sit in one area on one day, but he might actually go and sit somewhere completely different the day before. So it's completely mobile. No one has desk PCs. Everyone is equipped with mobile dongles. Everyone has their smartphones. And actually, the interesting thing is that that campus now holds 6,000 employees, so double the amount, and we've made no additional investment in space or office working. And actually, it will still continue to support new ways of working as we move forward. Everybody within Vodafone has the opportunity to work from home and mobile to the office, and it's just an accepted culture within that business. Clearly, it has other benefits for us. So much greater use of video conferencing. So we're now, I have a sales team, for example, who's spread from Aberdeen down to Brighton. So it enables us to use video conferencing, web chat, much more to ensure that we don't have to have face-to-face connection. Security is obviously critical for Vodafone in the way they operate. But there are also substantial savings to things that that are overheads within your offices. So this really has had a major impact on Vodafone as a business, and definitely we are living that vision of what the future can look like. The other thing is that I thought, well, that's great, big corporate global business, they can invest this money, that's absolutely fine. I actually had the opportunity, my brother-in-law actually set up a vet's practice about 3 years ago, and I spent some time with him recently just talking to him about the way his business works. Very quickly, we came up to see that there was a huge opportunity here. And that was that all of the vets were responsible for, once they had done an appointment and been out to see a client, they then had to book up all of that information so that it could be invoiced to the client. So what it meant was you were taking highly paid professionals off the road to do what was basically administrative tasks to ensure that the invoicing was done and obviously the cash flow for the business was right. And they used to spend about half a day a week doing that. So what we've now done is we've introduced a new way of working whereby actually what that business now does is that the vet, after making his call, as he's traveling to his next call, he records a voice memo into his smartphone that actually is all the booking up information that he's had from that call. He then emails that WAV file to a generic inbox. And now what they've done is they've employed a much more cost-effective employee who doesn't sit in the office, they sit at home. They actually can work anytime they want. All they do is they have some clear SLAs about when invoices need to be generated by. And that person just goes in, listens to the WAV file, creates the booking up, and it's job done. Now that's had a substantial impact on their business. And that's just a way that they've introduced new ways of working and how that's had an impact for them. The other thing that they're about to do is this company is about to introduce a product called OneNet Express. So that's and Paul's going to talk about that in a few minutes. But what that has meant is they've been able to remove all of their fixed line phone systems from their office. It means that a cost to them that was quite substantial for a small business of about 8 or 10 has just been removed, and they now have a mobile offering for both landline and for mobile as well. And that in itself has already generated 30% cost saving in terms of their telecom communications cost. So quite substantial of the impact in a small business like that. So you might say, well, okay, it's great to have a vision and a mission that says actually you want businesses to get smarter and adopt this new ways of working. So why Vodafone are doing that? The reason that we're doing it is that we believe mobility is right at the center of this opportunity. And actually, if Vodafone is doing all of the things right in terms of the right products, the right development, the right product performance and service that we can give businesses, actually, by default, new ways of working is going to enrich our business and grow our business in the way we want to see it moving. So customer adoption really will be the opportunity for Vodafone, and it will be an opportunity for Vodafone to be more than just a mobile network. It will be and allow us to become a total communications provider to businesses. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. There will be some time at the end just for a few questions if you've got, but I'd now like to hand over to Paul Wright, who's going to talk about how Vodafone specifically can support you in these new ways of working. So thanks, Paul.